everything in life is about relationships. So building real, authentic, trustworthy relationships, and that's way easier said than done. Symbiotic, people that you can trust, people that trust you, and be able to have that foundation of something that is more than just fly by the night sort of relationship. Like building real relationships is everything, both reality TV or real world.
Welcome to the 2% Factor podcast, where we explore where small things make a massive difference in someone's journey and story. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Hayden Moss, winner of Big Brother Season 12, also was on Survivor. I think the Castaway season, was it 26?
Season 27, yeah.
Season 27.
Yeah, blood versus water.
Yeah, so welcome to Hayden Moss. Can't wait to talk about his experience through his life, which has had several big pivots and a lot of learning lessons along the way. So welcome, Hayden.
Dan, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very much looking forward to this. This has been a long time coming.
I'm excited to be able to do this with you, break down the story, talk about the nuances and little 2% factor moments that, it's funny. We talk all the time about 2% factor moments, like not on the podcast, right? We'll talk about it and say, well, this decision it changed everything in my life, right? I mean, these are real things for you and I in conversations outside of the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. And a little bit of backstory. So for the folks out there that don't know, Dan's one of my best friends. We hang out all the time, spend a lot of time together. So when I say this is a full circle moment to come on the podcast, I mean it. It's been fun to watch this grow a little bit and now fun to be a part of it.
This podcast, we talked about it before it even launched. The idea around this, and I think the premise of this concept that there's these key decisions that come across in our life, and some of them appear small, and they end up being massive. Some of them end up appearing massive, and they end up being small. So it's really cool, and I'm excited to hit it with you. So let's back up. Probably some people that know you and some that maybe don't know about your baseball background. But let's kind of back up to Arizona State and baseball and tell us a little bit about your career, kind of what was going on at that time when you were at ASU.
It's funny, I have moments in life that I look back and it's almost like I've lived several separate lives, right? So you kind of break it down, coming out of high school as a touted college prospect to go play ball. Then I was in college where the focus was baseball. I thought I was going to go play professional baseball. That was the heavy focus. That didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Following that, I moved into kind of more that entrepreneurial journey or part of my life. And then now kind of I'm in more, I'll call it career mode or growth mode. When I think back to college, it was, I was playing at Arizona State. We were the best team in the country by a long shot. Our team was insane. I think
really the best.
Oh, we were the number one team in the country the entire season. I think we had 20 guys that ended up playing in the big leagues afterwards. The long story short, college baseball career, I was a walk-on at ASU, by the way. I ended up walking on at ASU. It was the toughest program in the country to walk on. I think I was, one of maybe 2 or 3 walk-ons to make the team under Pat Murphy in a 20-year span, right? The other walk-ons that made the team ended up playing in the big leagues. They ended up being big league players. So fast forward, the college baseball was an amazing part of the journey for me. It didn't work out the way I wanted. I had a pretty gnarly a knee injury that kept me from going and playing minor league baseball and really pursuing that part of my life.
But at that time of your life, that was your goal.
At that time of my life, I knew I was going to play professional baseball. I was dedicating, the most of my day was spent around baseball, whether that's, swinging the baseball bat in the morning, lifting weights. I went to college to play baseball. I didn't go to college to get an education. That's kind of the way that I was approaching life. again, uh, life happens, and some things work out the way that they should, and some things don't. But then ultimately, like it's what you make of that journey. So I had a pretty bad injury where I tore up my knee, and then I tried to come back and play in a rehab league, and it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. So in that moment, like I knew. Now I'm fast forward 22 years old, 22, unsure of what life is going to bring, right? Like unsure of the future, like where are we going with this? Knowing the baseball career was over. Like the dream that I had been living for the last 10 years since I was a little kid, I wasn't going to play professional baseball. Okay, what's next? And that's when you kind of like shift into, all right, it's time to make a change. Like, what can I do? How can I, really kind of get myself to achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve, minus the professional athlete career.
You know what's interesting? We've never talked about this. Your sports career was different than mine. I I was played high school basketball, and then went to Washington State University my freshman year. Didn't try to walk on or anything, and then I ended up in community college my sophomore year, and I ended up playing basketball at Olympic Community College. And at that time, I still had the dream in my mind, right? Like, can this become something? Maybe Europe ball, or when you're young, you always hope for something even beyond that, like the NBA, like for you MLB. Um, and I remember I lived in this terrible, like old apartment. Me and my old roommate Dave Brown, and I remember the day my sophomore year where I said, "This is going to end. It's going to become rec ball for me." Like, and you know what I mean? Where you just have that realization. For me, it wasn't an injury. It was more like I knew I was about where I was going to be, unless something different happened. And that was a switch for me where I literally went all into investing in my professional career, and away from thinking that sports was going to be anything beyond recreational.
Yeah, and Dan, what's wild for me specifically, like there was a moment, right? Like it wasn't like a transition out of sports. It was literally an injury that took that away in an instant. And in that moment, I'm obviously recovering, 18-month recovery of a knee injury that was brutal as I was kind of coming back to rehab. But I remember thinking, what am I going to do? Like, now what? I had thoughts in my head, am I going to go be a firefighter? Am I going to get into construction? My dad owned a construction company, he owned a restaurant. Uh, I spent summers framing houses for my dad, like kind of doing that. So I have a pretty good understanding of construction. So in my head, it's like, oh, maybe I'll get into construction. In that moment of my life, I had no idea what I was gonna do.
Which could be scary.
Extremely scary. Again, I had a one-track mind for a long time. Now that gets taken away. Now I'm kind of a little bit lost on the journey. And then I feel like, life sort of works itself out. And I'm a Christian, right? So I kind of put my faith in God in those moments, and it's like, okay, what and where, how is this going to work out? I'm typically pretty optimistic, so I knew something good was going to come out of all this, and I always work hard at whatever it is I'm doing. I put my best foot forward, no matter what it is. I knew it was going to work out, but I also was like, okay, now what?
It's so funny. I look at it the same way. I look at it as chapters, right? Chapters in your life that build. And I regularly talk about stacking good decisions on good decisions to create multipliers in your life. And we all know people who've been in situations where they stack bad decisions on bad decisions, and we see what happens there. Before we transition into kind of what happened next for you, right? You've got this situation happening where you're preparing your entire life for MLB, all aspects of it. Injury happens, gets taken away, and you've got to figure out where to go from there. You move on. You have your injury at ASU, and you're trying to transition into what's going to happen in your life, and you do make a new relationship during that transition. But walk us through how all that happened for you, kind of post baseball injury.
I was in a moment in my life where I was actually, for a little bit, I was trying to like go through physical therapy, get my knee back healthy again. I got invited to play in this. It was a rehab league where essentially minor league players or players that had been hurt got invited to go play in a league. So I got invited to go play in this league. It was in Palm Springs over the course of 3 months. During that moment, I wasn't as fast. I couldn't hit. I take 18 months off of baseball. It's like a long time. So things just weren't working out. In that moment, I was like, all right, that's when really I was baseball's done.
You legit remember losing a step, right? That difference between that next level athlete and where you were.
Not remember, like I still feel it to this day. It's like I was trying to come back post injury, and I had lost more than one step. I mean, I went from being, um, a great athlete to being a one step, two steps below that, and you can't be that trying to go play anything professionally. Like it's not. And I recognize it. I knew it.
That is such a relatable comment for me because, and I love it because a friend of ours, John, played in the NBA, and when I was young, I think I was 20, maybe 23. Um, we he set up a 2-on-2 game, and the 2-on-2 game was with Kevin Johnson, KJ, at that time with the Phoenix Suns, and one of his best friends. In the difference between, and I was playing against KJ, right? And I'm 6'5", and he's around six. I think he's 6'3", 6'4". Um, the difference between his abilities and mine were just shocking. His speed, his quickness, his agility, I mean, everything was effortless. And until you're with somebody who's at that exceptional level at what they do, you really are slapped in the face with the gap between you and them.
Yeah, no doubt. And when in that moment again, I knew, okay, I've lost a step. This isn't what it was. Transition has to happen now. Like and I recognized it. Like, okay, um, and that's really okay. We talked about it a minute ago. Like, what's next? Like now, I'm thinking about other things. Uh, Career. Am I going to be, like I said, a firefighter? Am I going to go into construction? What are the things that I'm going to do? Um, so I was on a flight flying back to Texas shortly after this league ended, right? And I was flying to go meet my mom, for it might have been Thanksgiving or whatever it was. Actually, it would have been in the spring. Time doesn't matter. While I'm sitting on this plane, a woman, flight attendant, comes and sits next to me and says, "Hey, have you ever considered reality TV? Would you want to be on the show Survivor?" And in the moment, I'm again sitting in the middle seat on a Southwest flight home, like, in a kind of a depressed state because I just realized, just unrealized the dream, right? Realized that my dream's not going to happen. And I was like, look, I thought she was full of it in the moment. Like, I mean, I look at her like, I mean, yeah, I guess I'd want to go on the show. So we have a little bit of a conversation. And even back up one step, I was in this weird place in life. So my hair, I grew out, my beard was a little bit grizzly. My hair was longer probably than it is now. So I kind of looked like a little bit of a castaway, call it, in the moment. So when she came, sat next to me, asked me, "Hey, would you want to do Survivor?" I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely, sounds great," thinking nothing would come of it. She gave me her card and said, "Okay, send me some photos tomorrow, and then we'll go from there." And I'm like, "All right, okay." And I kind of thought this lady, nice, very nice looking, lady older than me. I kind of thought she was hitting on me, to be honest. Like that. So then next day, I sent her some pictures. Um, Not kidding. A few days later, they fly me to LA.
Really, it was that quick.
It was literally they were in a hurry, in a pinch. I mean, maybe I sent her photos on a Monday. They flew me out on Saturday, but within a week or so time frame, they flew me to LA. And then I went through the casting process for Survivor. Did all the psych exams, the physical exams, everything. At the very end of that, and by the way, that process is stringent. Like you're there for days. They put you through the ringer. At the end of it, they gave me shots for international travel, and then they said, "Okay, Survivor." It would have been Nicaragua. you're going to be on Survivor Nicaragua. Send me home. And then I was like, cool, all right. A few weeks go by and I don't hear anything from him. Then it's like 3 weeks. I don't hear it. By the way, I'm at home. I'm learning how to light fire with sticks. What all the things preparing for Survivor. Binge watching every season of previous Survivor so I can practice. And really prepare as much as possible.
How do you prepare for Survivor when you've never been on it? It's happening that quickly. What do you do? Do you jump on YouTube?
Yeah, so I watched. I had to buy. I'm trying to think how I watched it. Then I bought seasons on whatever platform that they had that you could buy. I might have even bought DVDs back then. I ended up. I watched as many seasons as I could, leading up to it. And then as you're watching seasons, you're seeing how people play the game, right? So things that are important. How do you light fire with sticks?
And the good news is you already knew how to fish. You already knew how to hunt. You already, right? There's some basics that you had down.
That's another, call it even pre chapter one, right? So I grew up in the country. I grew up rodeo on horses, cows, learning how to I can fish, I can hunt, like all these things are what I grew up doing, right? There's an element of going on Survivor to me that was exciting. Like I was really excited to do it because I know out of 20 people, most likely I'm going to be able to survive and be better off on an island than most of the others, right?
Right.
So in that moment, I'm now at home during that few week period, preparing, doing everything I can. Like I said, learning to light fires, like all this stuff, right? Then I get a call from an LA number, comes up, LA on the phone, and they said, "Hey, this is so and so from the network," and actually it wasn't Lynn, so and so from the network. We want to let you know we're not going to put you on Survivor. And in that moment, I was like, my heart like sank. It's like one more thing, and they go, but something else might happen. We'll be in touch. Hang up the phone, and I'm like, what does that mean, right?
Sounds like a classic Hollywood phone call.
Shortly after that, I get another phone call. And I'm kind of telling this out of order because there's one more element that's important in here. But shortly after this, I got another phone call that was from Robin Cass and said, "Hey, my name's Robin. We want to bring you and put you on Big Brother." So then they flew me back to LA and then put me on the show Big Brother.
Did you know Big Brother at that time? Were you watching it? Was it part of your life?
I had no clue what Big Brother was. They said, "Hey, we want to put you on Big Brother." And on that call, I was like, "Sounds great. I'm in." Hung up. And I'm like, what the hell is Big Brother? Didn't even know. I had no idea. So then I looked it up, and essentially, for those that don't know what Big Brother is basically Survivor. Very similar game style, but you're in a house instead of on an island. And instead of starving, they feed you as much as possible, and all the food, all the drinks, pretty much that you want. Um, but you're playing this a very similar game where you're winning competitions. You win a competition, you gain power. One person gets voted out every week until there's one person left, right? Is really that's
It's strategy strong, right? Head of household, making decisions, making alliances, figuring out, navigating your way through to the end.
it's a social game, 100% a social game. So you are building alliances, navigating a social space where every single person is against you. No matter how you slice it, everybody wants to win the game because you're playing for $500,000. And it was just such a cool, fun experience. But yeah, it's that you got to have a high social IQ to make it far in that game. If you don't, you're not.
So you got the call, you're going to be on the show. What happened? What happened between then and getting on the show?
Okay, so I'm gonna back up one step, and this is like a really a wild moment in time. So a month prior to this ballpark time frame, not kidding, Dan. This is the back to the manifestation part. Like there are things in life that happen. It's like, that's weird. So this is and I haven't really. I don't know if I've ever even told this story like in a media format where it kind of gets out there, but this is a 100% true story. Just prior to going on the Survivor cast call, I had a weird dream, like just a random weird dream that I won $500,000, 500,000 on the dot. Like it wasn't I didn't win a million. I didn't win 1,000,005. I didn't win 10 million. I woke up in the morning and I thought, oh, that was weird. I won 500,000, right? On the money, $500,000 in my dream. And I was even like, shopping, buying things with it. I had this dream a month or so prior to going to LA for the Survivor call. Then I go out there for Survivor. They tell me they're going to put me on Survivor. They send me home. Then they call me and say, hey, we're going to put you on Big Brother instead. I don't know what Big Brother is. No idea. Hang up. I start looking up Big Brother. I figure all these things out. Oh, by the way, the prize for Big Brother is 500,000. In that moment, Dan, I knew for a fact I was going to win.
I know, but that's mind blowing.
No, that's for me. That was one of those like a honestly like a God moment for me personally, where it's like, okay, there's definitely something bigger at play here, and that's literally God just saying, hey, obviously I went through some hard stuff like with baseball, right? And then kind of knowing there are things that are going to come out in the wash and some things you're going to work out and you're going to have to work through this journey. But that was like a literal, like, again, that happened. And without a doubt, it was like meant to be something for me to grasp onto and follow, right? It was really cool.
I mean, you want to talk about a faith builder, right?
And then you got to go do it, right? So it's one thing to like, so then you got to go and you got to compete and like, fight your ass off. And there's a lot of things that were difficult in the game that when you got to kind of get through it. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
I'll say this too, though. I think there's power in the optimism around it. And so when you go into something believing you're going to win, knowing you got to put the hard work into it, but having that positive attitude, I mean, there's science and research around how optimism impacts outcomes. And you also brought that into the game in a forward momentum going towards that winner circle.
Optimism, confidence, like, faith, all those things. Like, hey, and then you got to prepare and you got to work. You got to put the effort in, right? There were some moments in the game, like where you're in the Big Brother house playing the game where technically my back was against the wall, and I know if I didn't win a challenge, right, then I'm out. So it's like, all right, this is it. I got to win, otherwise I'm done. And then you end up kind of working through it, and ultimately we made it to the end and we won, and it was pretty damn fun.
And the check was right on the money. Unbelievable.
And that's like that's a moment in life where I always look back and I'll always tell that story to some of the people that I'm close with. It's just it is unbelievable, but it happened, and I'll always kind of hang my hat on that whenever I'm like questioning like what are the bigger things, because it doesn't even like that's something doesn't register, right? For most people, like most people will never have that kind of experience that I had, where you have this dream and then that dream, although it's not like I won the money like at a casino or actually I won it like in a lotto kind of thing in the dream. So it's not like exactly, A for A or apples for apples, but I mean it's so close that it's like, man, just a special thing.
I think the other thing it does for a person, for those listening that relate to the concept, is that ability to be self-aware and in tune with what's going on with you and what you're thinking about. It carries through in your life. For an example, this morning you brought up something to me on a business topic that you had thought about, dreamt about, that has entered your mind, that you brought up, and I thought it was a great idea, right? And so you start building that confidence of being in tune with yourself in order to, you know, understand that there's value in the things that are happening around you and within you.
I think, again, things like that, I kind of lean on, hey, that's God figuring out a way to kind of help me out. And I think just we all have called the internal mechanism that's built to help us out in life. Like, the everything that is humanistic about us is built to help us prosper. And if you can be in tune with that, um, I think it's listen to your intuition, right? Lean on all the things that your intuition is and says, and I think that intuition typically, it's designed to help you versus hurt you, obviously. So if you can get in tune with that, I think that's a cool thing. And obviously, you got to also make logical decisions. Uh, but but I think being in tune with that is definitely way more helpful than hurtful.
All right, so massive 2% factor moment for you, transition, meeting, uh, meeting Jody, and that whole journey.
And yeah, the lady on the flight, Jody, is now one of my very best friends. Like I spent a ton of time with her still to this day. She's been a staple like since that moment, right?
It changed so much. It changed so much. Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so that was a big transition for you, and then you went, and then let's just. I'd love to know when you look back on the show. You look back at Big Brother. You did Big Brother before you did Survivor, right? So we didn't even talk about that yet. But when you were on Big Brother, what was a key 2% factor moment for you within the show that you can share that was a decision that you had to make that ended up having a big impact on the outcome?
So the way that game works, it's long, it's grueling, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So and really, what you described at the beginning of the podcast, where you stack good decisions on top of good decisions, then it becomes the body of work. That for Big Brother is what happened. And I remember the very first day on that show, day one. I mean, it might have been hour one. Uh, During the show, they're always throwing things at you in the house that are meant to, cause havoc, right? There was a power outage, right? In the house, it was 100% pitch black. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And when the power was out, there was, call it, some shenanigans that happened throughout the house, and everybody was pointing fingers at everybody, like, who was it? This person did it, that person did it. Well, during that power outage, there were three other guys with me sitting on the couch. We didn't get up and leave the couch. And that was Enzo, Lane Ellenberg, Matt Hoffman. So the four of us knew all the shenanigans. Well, it wasn't any of us, right? It was definitely somebody else. So in that moment, because we knew that, we formed an alliance. That alliance was called the Brigade. And no matter what you say, Brigade to this day probably the best alliance in the history of Big Brother. And people now will say there's others beyond us that are better, but we started kind of the the trend of an alliance going from day one.
You were the OG of Big Brother alliances or reality show alliances.
Yeah, there were other alliances, but at the time, at season 12, now they're on season 30 or whatever it is, we were considered for sure the best alliance in history at that point, right? So we formed day one. Three of us made it to the final three out of the whole cast, and we ran through the house pretty good.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Survivor before we go on to your career post reality TV. Um, what what did you? How did that all happen? Give me kind of the layout of how that next thing occurred because I know that time you spent at Survivor was also a really cool experience for you. So walk us through how that all occurred.
Yeah, it was Survivor, Big Brother, obviously, same network. They use they use a lot of crossover contestants, but they didn't used to do that. I was actually the first person to cross over from Big Brother to Survivor, um, which was cool. So I had a good relationship with the casting, with the folks that did the casting at CBS, and they had reached out to me. And at the time, I was dating a girl that was a previous Survivor contestant, but they called and said, "Hey, are you actually dating so and so? Because if you are, we'd love to bring you back and put you on Survivor." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, we actually are dating. It wasn't that serious of a thing, but we were dating." Um, So then her and I talked about it, and it became more serious than it was prior to that because we thought, okay, yeah, let's do this, get back on TV one more time because it is such a cool experience, right? It's a it's so much fun, and it opens a ton of doors. So then Survivor was the season was blood versus water, so everybody had a partner that came onto the island. Also, the first time they've done something like that. So it was me, my ex-girlfriend, right? There were mother-daughter partners, husband-wife partners, brothers that were partner, 20 people, so 10 groups of two. And then what they did is they split everybody up, so you're playing against your partner. So my tribe was essentially all newbies, and the other tribe was all the people that had played, but your loved ones, right? So now I'm playing against my ex girlfriend. I got Brad Culpepper, who is a friend of mine, playing against his wife, um, and it's again reality TV. They're there to stir the pot, create drama, create good TV.
Yeah, we had Brad and Monica on the podcast. They were amazing.
But and then they did exactly that. The network stirs up the creativity to create drama and make good TV. It's a great season,
Yeah.
by the way. If you haven't watched it, I would recommend it. It's a really good season.
Yeah. Well, some people say it's one of the best that was out there. And so during that, you got pretty far. I mean, I think you felt like you had a shot to get towards to the end.
Again, I don't want to give like spoilers into exactly what happened, but yeah, I made it to day 35 out of day 39, 35 out of 39 days. Essentially, I was in the final five. And my opinion, and I think opinion of quite a few others, is really when we got down that far, there were only a few people that truly had a chance to win. Tyson, the eventual winner, being one of those. And then honestly, if one thing goes a different way, I win the season. And it's literally drawing rocks out of a bag, Dan. That's what it came down to. Imagine Tyson reaching into a bag where there's three rocks. If he draws the bad rock, I win. Because he draws the good rock, he wins. That's essentially where we were in the season. So it was a rock draw for $1 million.
What's one thing that you learned from your experience in reality TV, whether it's Big Brother or Survivor, that's impacted your business career?
Everything in life is about relationships, right? So building quality, good relationships. I mean, that's the easiest way to make it far on reality TV. If you build real, authentic, trustworthy relationships, then you're gonna get far on reality TV, and that's way easier said than done. Like, cause everybody's out to get you. And I would say, very similar, like in the real world, like have real, authentic relationships that are, symbiotic, people that you can trust, people that trust you, and be able to have that kind of the foundation of something that is more than just call it a fly by the night sort of relationship. Like building real relationships is everything, both reality TV or real world. Like again, the relationship that I have with you, Dan, as one of my best friends, has been awesome for me. It's been paramount. Like honestly, my whole career, real career, has been a lot of it's been through you and working through our relationship. And now I've been with Two Win now for, I mean, 7+ years, which is kind of wild to think. Um, but it's been amazing.
Oh, and I've seen the relationships you have with customers is of the strongest, right? I mean, your ability to connect with people and build these strong, deep relationships is the top level of abilities and it's interesting, it's something that is a skill, but it's also something that's inherent in people that value having good relationships, right? It's something you care about. And I think that comes across.
I think it's you build them authentically. Like if you truly care, like I truly care to hear what somebody has to say, and I truly want to share, my experiences with them, then like the relationships and the friendships, they happen naturally. And then if you truly care and you put your best foot forward in a relationship, whether that's me working with a customer, I want the customer to get the most value out of all the things that we do. I truly care about them, their problems. I want them to be successful, right? If you do those things, the relationship just kind of takes care of itself. They're going to continue to come back. And then, oh, by the way, if there's somebody that I can really relate with, that relationship ends up going beyond, you know, client customer relationship. It's more of like it becomes a friendship. Like it really, truly does. And I have a number of clients, previous clients, current clients that are now friends. I can think of off the top of my head, I can list. Ray, Tim. It goes on and on and on, right? And those are the first two that come to mind. But that's it's a real thing.
And I think it's interesting because I think people see people. If you are in tune with connection and you care about connection, you see each other. Even the way that you and I met, as an example, right? And so when you look at that and applying that towards business skills and that ability to build those relationships, further them, deepen them, and then things tend to happen from there if you're around people that are looking to grow and people that are looking to expand their lives and all the things. So let's talk a little bit about that. You moved out of the reality world. You won a big $500,000 check. Must have felt like $20 million back then. I can't imagine, right? Your family must have just exploded.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like I remember, so the very last challenge of Big Brother is what they call an endurance challenge, and it was me against a friend of mine named Lane Ellenberg. And post Big Brother, him and I spent a ton of time together. We're still friends to this day. Don't talk to him as much as I would like to, but this endurance challenge is what it sounds like. We were hanging. Imagine like Tarzan hanging on a vine, okay? Little knot at the bottom of the vine. They put us both up on two ropes next to each other, call it a rope or a vine. And they said, okay, whoever can hang on the longest wins. And and then all of a sudden these ropes start, swinging back and forth, and then a little further, and then there's all of a sudden it's swinging far enough to where you hit a wall, and then it swings far enough the other direction. You hit a wall here. Dan, we were on this thing hours, hours,
How long?
hours. It was 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Oh my gosh. So what finally gave?
Lane finally gave up. So
Was it when you talked to him about it, was it his legs? Was it his arms? Was it psychological? What was it when he?
So I can speak from the way my body felt, and he's a bigger boy than I am. He's probably 220, and I was cramping up everywhere, but I was just wearing it. Like, okay, my biceps are cramped, my hamstrings are cramped, my like you're squeezing your kind of your legs together, so your hip flexors, your groin. My whole body was cramped up. But I also had the mindset where there ain't no quitting this dog. and uh, and I knew if I didn't win, I was out. That was one of those moments. And so so then Lane ends up falling off. We go through kind of a few hours later. I end up winning the game, right? So there was the moment where I'm walking out of the house, confetti flies, and there's a picture of me like my arms up in the air. I'm crying. My mom and sister are there, and they're hugging me and crying. Like just a really cool like moment where I know, okay, my life is definitely about to change. In what way, I'm not sure yet because I don't. By the way, when you're on Big Brother, you're in a house where there's zero communication with the outside world. Zero. Like I hadn't talked to anybody in my family for 3 months, hadn't seen the news, hadn't seen TV. Like I had no idea. So basically, you're in a bunker for 3 months while you're playing this game. So then I came out, saw my mom, grandparents, everybody for the first time, and imagine now I'm 24 years old. Went from having, I'm talking, Dan, I even have a screenshot somewhere. I think I had like $3 in my account at the time. prior to going on Big Brother. It was like literally $0. I was working at a snowboard shop, post, trying to play baseball, figure that out, working at a snowboard shop, figuring out what I'm gonna do, and then all of a sudden I get a check that's three feet wide, this big for 500 grand, and it was a pretty cool moment. So then, and then all of the things post Big Brother like end up, maturing, and I met so many people. I had, a lot of different job offers. I had different things that I could pursue and do. And I actually hadn't finished even college at that point. So I immediately, the first thing I did was the president of the Arizona Diamondbacks is a Big Brother fan. And he's also an ASU baseball fan. So it's like both of those things coincided. He asked me to come out and throw out the first pitch at a Diamondbacks game. And I met him, took a picture with him. His name's Derek Hall. And then he asked me, "Hey, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know." The last thing I needed to do to get my degree was an internship. So I said, "Oh, by the way, Derek, I need an internship. Can you help me out?" So then I ended up in the front office in their sales on their sales team for an internship. Did the internship. That allowed me to get my degree. As soon as I had my degree, all of this is coinciding with post Big Brother, right? So on the weekends, I'm getting flown out to LA or flown out to, Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, a lot of Canadian cities, and doing basically like post Big Brother events, parties, going to this or that to kind of just live life as a 24-year-old reality TV star.
That's amazing. So then, what did you end up pivoting? How did you make your transition then, to business life and the entrepreneurial path you took?
Yeah, I would say it was probably 6 months, 6 or 8 months after Big Brother. Um, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I knew now I had a little bit of a fund to do some different things. I ended up taking a job with an entrepreneur out of Scottsdale. Um, this is where I met a couple of buddies of mine still that are in that inner circle, Chris and Justin, right? He had a startup that was basically a tech startup, right? Where we were all working for nothing, earning sweat equity, working crazy hours. Um, Fast forward, that startup didn't pan out the way that we wanted it to, but I had met some really great guys that we would then go out and have dinner, um, have coffee in the morning. We were spending a lot of time together because we were working together. And like we talked about, when you're spending time with like-minded people, you start talking about ideas and concepts and different things. And we had come up with a concept for a mobile app, kind of a tech startup of our own. So we ended up leaving that startup that we were all at, and then we went and raised some money, and then started a tech company of our own, where we were building mobile apps for influencers.
And you ended up getting some big ones too.
I mean, we were ahead of our time, put it that way. So it's basically subscription-based mobile apps for influencers. We had on our platform Pentatonics, the band, um, John Cena, the Bella Twins. We had a few other like big name, call it Viners, social influencers at the time, and so we had some traction, we had some success early on, and then ultimately we didn't know what we were doing. We kind of ran out of funding, but we had a great product. But I sort of finally got to a place where it's like, all right, I'm ready to. And by the way, this is what Dan, you and I met during this time period, right? So
I actually remember when you had the meeting with John Cena. Like I remember talking to you right after that happened. So that's wild.
that was a crazy meeting, right? So John, we had met John or met a friend of John's that had saw the platform or was interested in the platform, and then John requested to meet with us. Hey, can I love this platform. I want to meet with these guys. And then so me, my two business partners, two buddies. Uh, First of all, we talked to John Cena's friend. He's like, whatever you do, you're gonna go to the Beverly Hills, Wilshire is where we had dinner. Wear a suit. He said, wear a suit. If you show up in a suit, John's gonna like you right away. So we all like, put on our suits.
Which that is a thing for John Cena, right? He's into kind of the more classic, older school approach to things where you're more dressed up and more formal about interactions, dinners, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And so we all suited up, went and had dinner with John. Our dinner was scheduled for like an hour, hour and a half maybe. I think we were there for 3 hours. We shot the shit with them all night. It was such a cool experience. He bought dinner, right? Ribeyes, fancy bottle of wine that he bought. By the way, John doesn't eat anything except for meats and vegetables. And then he had a few glasses of wine. And then to wrap the night, John said, "Well, looks like we're doing business together." And then he ordered 4 shots of Jack Daniels for all of us. So
Perfect.
we all ripped shots of Jack Daniels, and then we ended up working with John for a little while on the platform. That was a pretty cool experience.
And so many things that you learned from that entrepreneurial experience, and then your transition over to coming to work with me and us at Two Win. Um, it's interesting when I look back on 2% factor moments that I see. That was one for us. You and I met, and at that time when we met, there was we connected. We knew, hey, these are like-minded individuals that let's hang out, let's get to know each other, and then that ended up parlaying into us working together for the last 7-8 years, which has been incredible. So it really the reason I'm doing this podcast is because these things are real. These moments in life that are decisions that we all had to make. Even you and I in our relationship, moments of me seeing in you all the incredible things that I knew about you in terms of your abilities and your character, and skills and all the things, and you also you had a lot of choices at that point too, and so you could have went a lot of different directions. So it's really incredible how these moments in our life end up shaping so much, and I value them and I respect them, and I would just want to expose them so people can see what they really are.
So before I came to work at 2N, just kind of telling the story a little bit, Dan, you and I were friends before we worked together, right? We had met at an event, and like you said, built that relationship where we became friends. You were living in Seattle at the time, and you'd come down to LA where I was living every so often, and you'd come down and we'd get together and we'd go to a Clippers game, go to a game, go meet up at somewhere, Rock and Riley's, have dinner or drink or whatever. Um, and yeah, and we built like a real relationship. And then, like I said earlier, building those real relationships are key, right? So then fast forward, my startup ended up failing, and I had some options and I was trying to figure out, okay, what's next, but I was ready to kind of take a step into a career, call it a more of a career path, at least for a little while until I figured out what I was going to do. Um, Having a good relationship with you, Dan, I was able to make a phone call and say, hey, give me your perspective and your opinion. And then we kind of talked through things a little bit. And then I had a few other job offers as well. And ultimately, I went to dinner with you and you said, hey, at least consider coming to work with me at 2Win. And you kind of laid out what that would look for me. And the relationship with you that I had, the friendship that we had, is the reason why I ended up coming to 2Win. It wasn't because of what you pitched me around what 2Win was. It was because of you and because of our friendship. Like that's why. And there was an element of trust there. It's like, okay, I trust what Dan is telling me. I trust my intuition, and my gut was to do that versus take some of the other offers that I had. And I've been here 7+ years. It's been good. It's worked out really well.
So yeah, I mean, those are things that have happened in your career. I mean, it's been an incredible career since you've made the choice and moved to Win. But that transition for you, and that was a big one. When you look back, you're talking about professional baseball, you're talking about reality TV. You went into tech startup and investing in that with some of your money, and then transitioning and pivoting into a career path working at a company. What are some of the things that drew you to tech sales, that drew you to the type of business that you're in?
It's wild. the tech space is awesome, right? There's so much opportunity in the tech space. It was a little bit of a natural transition because I was had a tech startup of my own. And then so naturally I'm working or trying to emulate companies like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. So I was already heavily immersed in the tech world. And then parlay that with the relationship that I had with you, Dan, and I started understanding, what the opportunity in the tech space looked like. At 2N, we're working with the best companies in the world. And I think it's a very unique space as a whole where there's opportunity, there's growth. If you're good at it, there's also, it can be very lucrative. And then also there's flexibility. Like my job is amazing in the fact that I make a great living. I work in a culture with my friends. I have great people that I work with. And then also, like I do have some flexibility. I work fully remote, so I'm home. This is my home office today, but I might be, going to see my dad in Arizona, because he's out there, and I can not miss a beat, and I can still work a day from Arizona just as easy as I can my house in Texas. And those are the kinds of things that you can get working in the tech world, where most traditional brick and mortar companies or some of the more blue collar verticals, you're not going to get that same type of flexibility. So that flexibility, again, the it can be pretty lucrative if you're good at it. And then it's just you're working in cool cultures that are kind of cutting edge.
It is cool, right? Because you're in conversations that help you evolve your thinking, and you're constantly challenged with what are their challenges because we try to help them. And so you're around all of macro these macro changes that are happening within the tech space, within the world, and you're able to touch them. So I think the important part, one of the important parts of that is picking an industry that you're interested in. If you're interested in growing, you're interested in change. Tech's always changing. It's always evolving. If you're not changing and evolving, you're dying in tech. And so yeah, I think picking a career path that aligns with the type of style and person that you are, can matter for people as well. So with that, because you have flexibility, other interests as well, you've also made some investments with some of your success, continued success in other things, right? Like real estate. You made the move from California to Texas. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things you're into.
Yeah, it's because of the success that I've had at 2Win, it's allowed me to really invest in other things and other opportunities that I'm interested in. And coming full circle back to the beginning of our conversation, where when you're by yourself at home or when you're talking in your inner circle, what are the things that you talk about? Well, for me, like it's real estate. Like if I'm not working, I'm still working, right? Like I'm constantly looking at real estate. In fact, so when I made the transition from Los Angeles back to Texas, it was a tough decision, but it was one of those decisions where my intuition was right. It was literally 2020 at the bottom of the market. I made the biggest investment I've ever made in my life. Bought a pretty cool, pretty substantial piece of real estate, hundreds of acres,
A big chunk of Texas land.
a big chunk of Texas land with a cool house on it. And then since I've chopped that up a little bit, but that was the biggest investment at that point. And since 2020, that investment has grown significantly. And it's just that's one example of things that I'm doing. I'm building a house right now. I have some other um, residential rental properties. I have other investment properties. I just bought an RV park. Like there are things that we're working on all the time in real estate that are unique. So I love that. 2Win has allowed me, working in the tech space has allowed me to do that also at the same time simultaneously. And then the crypto space, like I'm obsessed. I think the crypto space is a very fun place to play around in. And I think that the growth there is going to be insane. So also, I'm heavily invested in crypto, real estate, and then some traditional investments as well. But that's kind of like my portfolio. I've been able to do those things because of what I've accomplished at 2Win, working in the tech world. And for that, like I'm grateful. And really, Dan, grateful for. And I tell you this, often, but but you've impacted my life in a huge way. You know it, and I'm very grateful for it. So it's been a very fun journey.
I appreciate you too, brother. And I love, one, seeing all the things you're doing and all the incremental changes and additions that you're adding to your ultimately wealth portfolio over the long term. It's so cool to see. And I love our conversations. I'm really enjoying right now all the discussions we're having about crypto, because that is such an exciting space to spend time in, and it's so easy to get down the rabbit hole, and and interesting. And
By the way, none of this is financial. I'm not a financial advisor. Like, none of this is financial advice.
wait a minute, I think I just heard you say buy, buy, buy. No,
I am buying, buying,
so
buying. Not financial advice.
so Hayden, as you know, one of the questions we ask every single guest, and you were in such a pivotal time at this time. I'm really interested to ask you the following question, which is, what would you say to 22-year-old Hayden Moss, knowing what you know now, out of all the things you've learned and decisions you made back then? Like, what advice would you give to him?
Say yes to more things, even though I did. But like those are the things because I said yes to a lot of things and I enjoyed and I pursued a lot of different opportunities. That's molded me into what I've become. So I think say yes versus saying no to say yes to going to that dinner. Say yes to uh, Dan, you and I, like the first time you invited me out to go get appetizers and a drink, say yes to those kinds of opportunities versus no. That's like the philosophical answer. Say yes to more things, and then from like pure financial perspective, start investing sooner, right? Like I really sure I invested in a startup when I was in my 20s, but I didn't really get into more traditional investments. When I say that, real estate, and I'm also including crypto in that, but that's like an investment. It's not a traditional investment, but it's still like a hey, this is where your place you're putting your money, where you're expecting it to grow, right? Start doing those things sooner, right? Versus waiting until I was in my 30s, basically my early 30s. Because even in the last 7 years, I've seen what's done. It's like, man, if I would have done that in my 20s, I'd be doing something different now. Like,
The recognition and understanding of compound interest at that younger age. And I think that goes for financial decisions, as one of your points, but your other point as well, compound interest in terms of relationships. Say yes to learning, to more people, more connections, more networking.
100%. Like, think about even what I just described. Like, when I went on Big Brother, I said yes to Jody right on the plane the first time. I said yes to you. I said yes to John Cena. There's a lot of things that ended up happening in my life because I was able to okay, let's say yes, give this a whirl, and see how it shakes out.
It's. I just have to add one more thing. It's such a interesting way to describe some of the things that have occurred with you that I haven't thought about it in this way. Because when I look back also into our evolution of conversations about you coming to work with me, also, that was a conversation that you had to say yes to as well. I mean, I'm on a ferry boat in the middle of the ocean thinking of you, thinking, I need to call you. We got to work together and let's move past friendship. Let's also spend our business time together. And when I called you, you were on the way to go coach a baseball team, and all the way up the freeway in California, you literally had to be willing to hear me, trust me, turn around, because I was asking you to catch a flight to Seattle to interview with our team that was there, and the flight left in like two hours.
The flight left in 2 hours, and I was an hour and 20 minutes away from the airport at least. So it's like anybody that's been to LAX is a nightmare. Um, Anyways, I said yes in that moment. I was able to hustle, fight my way through check-in. Barely made the flight. They're shutting the door of the plane as I'm climbing on, and because I said yes to that moment, I made it to Seattle, and now I've been with you for 7 years, man.
Here we go. I mean, saying yes. I mean, just Killer advice. Killer advice. Saying yes where it makes sense, understanding where to make some of these critical choices and how they play
Even
out.
like little things, like sometimes, this is an example, I'll have a friend or somebody will say, hey, you want to come meet me for a coffee or a bite to eat? And maybe it's a day where I'm tired, I don't really want to do it. Sure, I can stay home and decide to uh, take the easy route. But if you say yes, you're going to go, you're going to have that coffee, you're going to further build that relationship, and who knows what's going to come out of that, right?
So Hayden, where can people find you on social media?
Well, LinkedIn, if this is two-way and work related, let's go find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest place. And then Instagram is where I'm definitely most active. So that's just Hayden Moss 11 on Instagram. And that's kind of the extent of where I'm at on social these days.
Hayden, thank you for joining the podcast. Amazing insights and stories and things for people to learn from because of your willingness to share. So thank you for joining. I appreciate you, man. And for those listening, please like, subscribe, make a comment, and please listen for more amazing guests like Hayden Moss on 2% Factor Podcast.
Dan, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.